My mother-in-law trashed my cooking, my clothes, my life. She called my boss, lying to get me fired. I told her to back off, and she lost it. She grabbed me screaming, then the police showed up. I'm Emma, 32, living in Seattle with my husband, Michael. We've been married for 3 years, and while I love him, his mother, Patricia, has turned our life into a constant battle. She's not just overbearing, she's a control freak who thinks she owns every part of our marriage. From the moment we started dating, Patricia's been a shadow over us, always lurking, always meddling. I thought it would get better after we tied the knot, but I was wrong. It's only gotten worse. When Michael and I were dating, Patricia's interference was subtle but annoying. She'd call him during our dates, reminding him to take his vitamins or avoid spicy food because it upset his stomach. I'd laugh it off, thinking it was just her being quirky. Michael's her only child, so I figured she was just protective. But it wasn't just phone calls. Once we planned a quiet dinner at a cozy Italian place in Capitol Hill. I spent all day looking forward to it, picturing us sharing a plate of pasta under soft lights. But halfway through dessert, Patricia called. Michael stepped outside to take it, and when he came back, he looked sheepish. Mom says it's getting late, he mumbled. She thinks we should head home. It was barely 8 o'clock. I swallowed my frustration, paid the bill, and we left. I told myself it was a one-off, but it wasn't. Patricia had an opinion on everything. If I cooked dinner, she'd text Michael afterward, suggesting I add less salt or more greens. One night, I made his favorite grilled salmon with a lemon herb sauce. I was proud of it, the kind of dish you'd see in a fancy restaurant. We sat down, and Michael took a bite, smiling. Then his phone buzzed. It was Patricia, saying she'd made the same dish last week and it was so much better with her recipe. My stomach twisted. I spent hours on that meal, and she wasn't even there to taste it. Michael just shrugged, like it was no big deal. She's just trying to help, he said. I bit my tongue, but inside I was fuming. Her control went beyond food. One weekend, we planned to see a movie at the theater in Fremont. I was excited for a night out, just us. No interruptions. But before we left, Michael called her. I overheard him asking, "Mom, is it okay if we go to the movies tonight?" My jaw dropped. He was 35, asking permission like a teenager. Patricia said the theater was too crowded and suggested we stay home instead. Michael nodded, hung up, and turned to me. Maybe she's right, he said. We can just stream something. I wanted to scream. This wasn't just quirky anymore. It was suffocating. I tried talking to Michael about it, gently at first. Don't you think it's a bit much, her calling the shots like this? I asked one night, curled up on our couch. He got defensive, his face tightening. She's my mom, Emma. She just cares about me. Then he grabbed his phone and called her, asking her to explain why she's so involved. I sat there, stunned, as Patricia's voice came through, calm and smug, telling me I needed to understand their special bond. My heart sank. I wasn't just married to Michael, I was married to his mother, too. Patricia's grip on our lives tightened, and I felt like I was drowning. Michael's dependence on her was no longer just annoying, it was suffocating our marriage. Every decision, big or small, had to pass through her first. If I wanted to try a new recipe, Patricia would text Michael, saying it wasn't healthy enough. If we planned a night out, she'd call, insisting he needed rest for work. I started to feel like a guest in my own home, always second-guessing myself to avoid her judgment. Seattle's rainy days already felt gloomy, but Patricia made them unbearable. One incident burned itself into my memory. I'd planned a weekend getaway for us to a charming bed and breakfast in Olympia. I pictured us hiking through Capitol State Forest, holding hands, rekindling the spark we had when we first met. I booked the place, a cozy spot with a fireplace, for $200. But when I told Michael, his face fell. I need to check with Mom, he said, pulling out his phone. My heart sank. I stood there in our kitchen, gripping the counter as he dialed her. Patricia's voice came through, sharp and dismissive. Olympia? That's too far. What if something happens? It's not safe. Michael nodded like he always did, and hung up. She says we shouldn't go, he told me, avoiding my eyes. I asked if he wanted to go, if he thought it could be fun. He just shrugged. If Mom says no, it's probably for a reason. I wanted to scream. Instead, I canceled the reservation, losing the deposit. We stayed home watching TV in silence. Her control wasn't just about plans, it was personal. One evening, I made a lasagna, layering it with fresh mozzarella and basil, proud of the effort. Michael loved it, or so I thought. Halfway through dinner, his phone buzzed. Patricia again. She'd somehow heard about the meal. Michael must have mentioned it and said it was too heavy for his digestion. She suggested I stick to lighter dishes, like her chicken soup recipe. I stared at my plate, my appetite gone. Michael just kept eating, oblivious. She's just looking out for me, he said when I brought it up. I felt my chest tighten, like the walls were closing in. I tried talking to Michael, really talking. One night, after Patricia called to remind him to wear a jacket because it was chilly in Seattle, I sat him down. Michael, this isn't normal, I said, my voice shaking. We're married. Why does your mom get to decide everything? He got defensive, his jaw clenching. She's always been there for me, Emma. You don't get it. I pushed back, asking why he couldn't set boundaries. He stood up, grabbed his phone, and called her. I heard him venting about how I was overreacting. Patricia's voice was soothing, telling him I was being unreasonable. I sat on the couch, tears stinging my eyes, feeling like I was losing him to her. The worst came when Patricia started showing up unannounced. One Saturday, I was cleaning our apartment when she walked in. No knock, no call. She scanned the place, her lips pursed. This place could use a better vacuum, she said, like she owned it. I forced a smile, my hands trembling. She sat down, told Michael he looked tired, and suggested he cancel our dinner plans to rest. He nodded, and I felt invisible. I was starting to dread every moment with her, knowing she'd find a way to make me feel small. Our third wedding anniversary was supposed to be special. I spent weeks planning a perfect evening to celebrate Michael and me, to remind us why we fell in love. I booked a table at a fancy restaurant in Bellevue, the the same place we had our first date. I could still picture that night, us laughing over glasses of wine, his hand brushing mine, the spark in his eyes. This time, I reserved a spot by the window, imagining us watching the city lights, sharing a slice of cheesecake, just like old times. I even splurged $150 on a night at a charming inn nearby, dreaming of a cozy escape. I didn't tell Michael, wanting to surprise him. My heart raced with excitement as I got ready, slipping into a dress I knew he loved. But when I got home from work, Michael wasn't there. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. I called his phone, my stomach twisting. He picked up, his voice distant. "I'm at Mom's," he said. "She had a rough day, so I'm having dinner with her." My chest tightened. "Michael, it's our anniversary," I said, my voice cracking. There was a long pause. "Oh, I forgot," he mumbled. I felt like I'd been punched. He forgot our anniversary? I stood in our living room, staring at the flowers I'd bought, my eyes stinging. "Come home," I said. "Please." He sighed, said he'd be back soon, and hung up. I waited, the clock ticking past our reservation time. The restaurant called to confirm. I had to cancel, my voice shaking. When Michael finally walked in, I was sitting on the couch, the flowers wilting on the table. "How could you forget?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He shrugged, looking guilty but not enough. "Mom needed me, Emma. She was upset about something at work." I exploded. "What about me? What about us? This was our day." My hands shook as I gestured to the dress, the flowers, the plans I'd made. He looked away, muttering, "You're overreacting." That's when it got worse. Instead of talking to me, he grabbed his phone and called Patricia. I stood there, frozen, as he told her I was making a big deal out of the anniversary. Her voice came through, calm but sharp. "She's being dramatic, Michael. You were just being a good son." My blood boiled. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed over, snatched the phone from his hand, and let it all out. "Patricia, this is our marriage. Stop controlling him." She laughed, cold and cutting. "You're just jealous, Emma. You'll never understand our bond." I hung up, my hands trembling, tears streaming down my face. Michael stared at me, caught between us. "She's my mom," he said, like that explained everything. I shook my head, my voice breaking. "I'm your wife, Michael. Or does that not matter?" He didn't answer, just looked down, his silence louder than any words. I went to bed alone that night, the weight of 3 years crashing down. It wasn't just the anniversary, it was every moment Patricia stole from us, every time Michael chose her over me. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if our marriage could survive her. My heart ached, but a fire was growing inside me. I wasn't going to let her win. The anniversary fight left me raw, but it lit a fire in me. I couldn't keep living under Patricia's shadow. The next morning, I decided to confront her. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and called her. "Patricia, we need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady. She sighed like I was wasting her time. "What now, Emma?" I took a deep breath. "You need to stop meddling in our marriage. Michael's my husband, not your little boy." Her laugh cut through me, sharp and mocking. "You're jealous of our bond," she said. "You'll never replace me." My jaw clenched. "I'm not trying to replace you. I just want my marriage back." She hung up, leaving me fuming. That evening, Patricia showed up at our Seattle apartment, unannounced as usual. I was in the kitchen, prepping dinner, Michael's favorite, spicy beef tacos. The smell of cumin filled the air, and I was trying to reclaim some normalcy. She walked in without knocking, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "Oh, tacos?" she said, her nose wrinkling. "Those are far too spicy for Michael's stomach." I gripped the spatula, my knuckles white. "He loves them," I said, forcing a smile. She ignored me, turning to Michael, who was sitting on the couch. "You shouldn't eat that, dear. I'll make you something lighter tomorrow." Michael nodded, avoiding my eyes. My heart sank, but I wasn't backing down. At dinner, it got worse. I served the tacos, proud of the effort I'd put in. Patricia took one bite, grimaced, and pushed her plate away. "This is inedible," she said, dabbing her mouth like she'd been poisoned. "Emma, you really should learn to cook properly." My face burned. I'd spent hours on those tacos, and Michael had always raved about them. I looked at him, waiting for him to say something, anything. He just stared at his plate, silent. "Patricia," I said, my voice shaking, "if you don't like it, you don't have to eat it." She smirked. "I'm just looking out for my son." The final straw came when she commented on my outfit. I was wearing a simple blouse and jeans. Nothing fancy, just comfortable. Patricia scanned me, her lips pursed. "That's an interesting choice," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "Most women your age dress with more class." My blood boiled. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. "This is my home, Patricia. You don't get to come in here and insult me." Her eyes narrowed, and she stood too, stepping closer. "You're the one tearing this family apart," she hissed. Michael sat there, frozen, like a deer in headlights. I pointed to the door. "Get out." She didn't move, just glared, her face twisted with anger. For the first time, I saw how far she'd go to keep control. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage, I was fighting for myself. Patricia didn't take my stand lightly. After I told her to leave, her silence was deafening, but I knew she wasn't done. The next day, I started hearing whispers. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael's cousin, Sarah, who lives in Tacoma. "Hey, Emma, is everything okay? Aunt Patricia's been saying some weird stuff about you." My stomach dropped. I called Sarah, my hands sweaty. She told me Patricia had been calling family, claiming I was neglecting Michael, cooking unhealthy meals, and dressing inappropriately. She even told Sarah I was keeping Michael up late, messing with his work. My heart pounded. I explained how Patricia had been controlling our lives, criticizing everything I did. Sarah sounded uneasy but said she'd try to stay out of it. I hung up, feeling exposed, like Patricia was painting a target on my back. It didn't stop there. Patricia's attacks got bolder. One afternoon, I got called into my boss's office at the marketing firm where I work in downtown Seattle. My manager, Lisa, looked uncomfortable. "Emma, we got a strange call about you," she said, her voice low. My heart sank. "Someone claiming to be a family member said you've been unprofessional. They mentioned issues with how you handle clients. I froze, my mind racing. I'd always been a top performer. Never a single complaint in 5 years. Who called? I asked, though I already knew. Lisa hesitated. They didn't leave a name, but it was a woman. Sounded older. My blood ran cold. Patricia had gone after my job. The complaint was detailed, too detailed. It accused me of being rude to colleagues, missing deadlines, even dressing unfit for the office. Lies. All of it. I explained to Lisa that it was a personal issue, my voice shaking with anger. She nodded, sympathetic, but said I'd need to take a mandatory professionalism seminar to clear things up. I walked out, humiliated, my face burning. I'd spent years building my reputation, and Patricia nearly torched it with one phone call. I sat in my car in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, tears streaming down my face. She wasn't just meddling in my marriage, she was trying to ruin my life. Then came the social fallout. At a friend's barbecue in West Seattle, I noticed people acting strange. A couple of Michael's old friends barely looked at me, whispering when I walked by. Later, one of them, Jen, pulled me aside. "Emma, what's going on with you and Michael's mom?" she asked. My stomach churned. "What did she tell you?" Jen shifted, uneasy. "She said you're trying to cut her out of Michael's life, that you're controlling." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "She's the one controlling him," I said, but Jen just gave me a pitying look. Patricia's lies were spreading like wildfire, turning people against me. I went home, my mind spinning. Michael was on the couch, scrolling through his phone. I told him about the call to my work, the whispers, the barbecue. "Your mom's trying to destroy me," I said, my voice breaking. He looked up, his face pale. "She wouldn't do that," he mumbled, but his eyes flickered with doubt. I shook my head, my hands trembling. "She already has, Michael." I felt trapped, like Patricia was closing in from every side. Something had to give, or I'd lose everything. I couldn't take it anymore. Patricia's attacks had gone too far, spreading lies, threatening my job, turning friends against me. I felt like I was losing my grip on my own life. That night, in our Seattle apartment, I sat Michael down. The living room was dim, the rain tapping against the windows. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. "Michael, this has to stop," I said, looking him in the eyes. "Your mom's destroying us. You need to choose me or her." His face fell, his hands fidgeting. "Emma, don't make me do this," he pleaded. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "I married you, not Patricia. I can't live like this anymore. If you don't set boundaries, I'm done." Michael looked torn, his eyes darting to his phone, like he wanted to call her right then. "She's my mom," he said, his voice breaking. "She's always been there." I stood up, my hands trembling. "And I'm your wife. If you can't see how toxic she is, we're finished." I walked to our bedroom, my chest tight, and shut the door. I didn't sleep that night, wondering if I'd just ended my marriage. The next day, Michael called Patricia. I overheard him, his voice shaky but firm. "Mom, you need to back off. Emma's my wife, and you're hurting us." My heart lifted for a moment. Maybe he'd finally stand up to her. But then I heard her voice through the phone, loud and furious. "You're choosing her over me? Your own mother?" She screamed, accusing me of manipulating him, saying he'd regret it. Michael tried to calm her, but she wouldn't listen. I sat on the couch, my stomach churning, knowing this wasn't over. That evening, Patricia showed up at our apartment. No call, no warning. The door flew open, and there she was, her face red with rage. "How dare you?" she shouted, pointing at me. I stood up, my heart racing. "Patricia, you need to leave," I said, my voice shaking but firm. She stepped closer, her eyes wild. "You're ruining my son's life," she yelled. Michael stood between us, his hands raised. "Mom, stop," he said, but she ignored him. She lunged at me, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my skin. I gasped, pulling back, but she shoved me hard. I stumbled, hitting the coffee table, pain shooting through my side. Michael grabbed her, shouting, "Mom, what are you doing?" I scrambled for my phone, my hands trembling, and dialed 911. The police arrived in minutes, their lights flashing outside our window. Patricia was still screaming, calling me a homewrecker, as they cuffed her. I stood there, shaking, my arm stinging where she'd grabbed me. The officers took my statement, their faces serious. "She assaulted me," I said, my voice barely steady. They led her away, her eyes glaring at me until she was out the door. Michael sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I can't believe this," he whispered. For the first time, I saw it in his eyes. He was starting to see her for what she was. My heart ached for him, but I felt a strange relief. Patricia had crossed a line and there was no going back. I touched his shoulder, my voice soft. "We'll figure this out," I said. But inside, I wasn't sure what came next. The night Patricia was arrested left our apartment eerily quiet. The police lights faded outside, and Michael sat on the couch, staring at the floor. I could see the weight on him, his shoulders slumped, his eyes red. I sat beside him, my arm still sore from where Patricia had grabbed me. "I'm sorry, Emma," he whispered, his voice cracking. It was the first time he'd apologized without calling her to back him up. My heart softened, but I stayed cautious. "We need to talk about this," I said, my voice gentle but firm. He nodded, looking lost. The next day, Michael went to the police station. He wanted to talk to Patricia, to understand why she'd snapped. I stayed home, my stomach in knots, wondering if he'd come back defending her again. When he returned, his face was pale. "She wouldn't listen," he said, sitting heavily at the kitchen table. "She kept saying you're the problem, that I'm betraying her." He paused, his hands shaking. "I told her I need space, for us." My breath caught. For the first time, he was choosing me. We talked for hours that night, the Seattle rain drumming outside. I told him how Patricia's control had suffocated me, how her lies and attacks made me feel like I was losing myself. He listened, really listened, his eyes filled with guilt. "I didn't see it," he admitted. "I thought she was just being a mom." I reached for his hand, my voice steady. "She wasn't just being a mom, Michael. She was trying to run our lives. lives. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I'm done letting her do that. Michael decided to cut contact with Patricia, at least for now. It wasn't easy for him, she'd been his anchor his whole life. He wrote her a letter, his handwriting shaky, saying he loved her but needed boundaries to save our marriage. He didn't send it right away, but just writing it seemed to lift a weight off him. I watched him seal the envelope, my heart torn between hope and fear. Would he stick to it? Could we rebuild? We started small. Michael stopped answering her calls, letting them go to voicemail. When she showed up at our apartment, he didn't open the door. I saw the pain in his eyes every time, but he held firm. We made new routines, date nights at quiet spots in Fremont, cooking together without her critiques. One night, as we laughed over burnt pancakes, I felt a spark of the old us, the couple we were before Patricia's shadow loomed. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I got a restraining order against Patricia, just to be safe. The process was daunting, filling out forms at the courthouse, but it gave me peace of mind. Michael supported me, standing by my side when I filed. For the first time, I felt like we were a team. Our marriage wasn't fixed, not yet, but we were trying. I looked at him sometimes, wondering if he'd waver, if Patricia's pull would win, but each day he chose me, I believed a little more. We were stepping out of her shadow, one shaky step at a time.